Welcome to One Man's Tracks, the secondhand music channel, and welcome to the finale of Maynard May-hem. What a fantastic month it's been going over everything Maynard James Keenan has put out in his many bands, and it's time to take on the colossal progressive metal pillar known as Tool, the hard rock foundation upon which MJK has built this innovative genitallactic empire upon, and the quote unquote final boss of turn of the century mainstream heavy music. A coalition of supremely talented musicians featuring guitar virtuoso Adam Jones, out of this world drummer Danny Carey, and groove cutting bassist Justin Chancellor and Paul Demure, who continuously provide boundary pushing epic soundscapes which Maynard coats in his aggressive ethereal exorcisms. I'm here today to rank each of their studio releases from Opiate to Fear Inoculum based on simply how much I personally enjoy them, as a great excuse to talk a little bit about each and every one of this band's incredible releases. At this point, that comes up to 5 LPs, 1 EP, and a box set, and they've all sold a ton of copies with a litany of insufferables discussing them ad nauseum, and I guess it's time for me to make my own pilgrimage and throw my own 2 cents into the pot. Being a huge fan of nearly everything Mr. Keenan graces with his vulnerable vocals, I must preface this list by mentioning just how moving and worthwhile each and every release from this band is, particularly if you're someone who's interested in having some epic, heavy, mind-expanding rock music experiences. Getting into it now with the only accessible of Tool's live releases, recorded between 92 and 98 and released in December of 2000 through Volcano 2 and produced by David Bottrill. It's Salival, an outtakes live video box set that I've included in this list for its impressive recording quality, stout, unique performances, and the interesting insight it provides into a pre-APC era Maynard, which, as a very, very young infant at the time, was completely inaccessible to me, as well as the fantastic groove of Merkaba and some cool covers to boot. Salival is a super fun snapshot during a supremely creative period of Tool's history. It does, however, lack flow or deeper connection or the purposeness that the other material from the band delivers on, but if you're a fan of Tool and you haven't given it a listen, don't miss out on it. Next up is the album that ultimately led me to dive into this band and the greater Maynard collaborative universe, largely due to the accessibility it gave me to Tool's catalog. After edging Tool fans for well over a decade, going through legal and personal disputes, in August of 2019, they joined the streaming juggernauts and released their self-produced 5th full-length LP through Volcano and RCA Records. Fear Inoculum. The vast, long-awaited album was the band's third straight to reach #1, and its lead single and title track became the longest ever charting song at the time. Its placement here on my list is more of a reflection of the unreal high watermark of this band's output rather than this album's overall quality. Fear Inoculum is an amazingly defined and balanced record that delivers its very own far-reaching dynamic experience with firm, dark, spacious yet as crushing as an ocean instrumentals with unrelenting builds and crashing descending arpeggios navigated valiantly by the bitter prophet Reverend Maynard. A massive, wide-open prog metal project pulling desperately at the unraveling era of mindless fear. It's not an album I can just throw on a whim necessarily, but it does grow on me with each listen, and I could easily see it making a run for my top 4 if I keep on giving it a try over the next decade or so. Pneuma is such a ripper. Tempest is totally wild, but I think my favorite track here is Descending. Time to really get sucked down into the thick of things with a contentious top 5. Now, don't get me wrong here. I still think it's an absolute classic metal album with a ton of heat, but the band's first and Paul Damour's only LP, released in April of 1993 through Zoo Records and produced by Sylvia Massey. My fifth favorite Tool is Undertow. This dizzying debut is adorned with an onslaught of rowdy, soul-rattling songs. Just brash, grimy, banger after banger. And its stirringly direct, fierce delivery is one that drives its multi-layered metal messages right on home. Aggressively lashing outwards and inwards for an hour can sure be cathartic, but at times I find myself a little suffocated by the angst and the smashed up mix here. I can't really say I dislike any of the songs, besides maybe the crickets on the second half of Disgustipated, but Undertow, Prison Sex are terrific. Sober is painfully poignant, and my favorite Swamp Song are all absolute essentials. Moving on up to one of the most immediately memorable Tool projects, released in April of 2006 through Volcano Records, the band's first fully self-produced album. It's the Ayahuasca Godheads of 10,000 Days. Containing some of the most snappy and gratifying Tool tracks like Vicarious and The Pot, as well as some of the most drastic and devastating emotional swings on songs like Wings and Right Into. 10,000 Days juxtaposes existential disorientation with a pounding catharsis to help exemplify its transformative and transitional concept. Loaded with on-the-nose allegories and trippy moments of reflection, a conflicted Saturn's return whose individual moments tend to outshine the record as a whole. I'm far more likely to come back and spin these singles rather than experience those emotional highs and lows all in one go. I absolutely love the wild groove of Jambi, and Rosetta Stone is hilarious, but my as basic as it may be Tool take is I think The Pot is the absolute top of the one-off Tool listening experiences. 3 left. The Cream of the Cock. My bronze medal member was released way back in March of 1992 through Zoo Records, produced by Sylvia Massey and Steve Hanskin. It's their explosive EP, Opiate. Swift and savage, and for the masses, its basic but bold, repeated mantras are incredibly potent. This smashing EP conveys a mighty brutality with prickly cuts that are instantly piercing. The immediacy is palpable, especially with the inclusion of the 2 live from the Jello Loft tracks. You get a taste for the band's youthful petulance and the spark that ignited this monumental metal band. It's only 25 minutes long, so hush and just go off for 7 short, sweaty face melters. At this point, the decision is an agonizing semantic back and forth between 2 unbelievable, atmospheric, moving metal masterpieces, both produced by David Bottrill and released through Volcano Entertainment. My second favorite of the 2 came after a 4-year legal battle with that very label. Released in May of 2001, my second favorite Tool album is Lateralis. Holy shit, what a ride! So incredibly well mixed and balanced with the best, most profound and evocative lyricism from MJK ever. This towering project truly sends the listener on an overcharged epic. Thoughtful, gripping tempo shifts, patient, explosive climaxes with hooky as ever songwriting. Lateralis' carefully curated ebbs and flows are unforgettable. If I had to nitpick a reason to make this second and not first, I guess I'm not crazy about Reflection. Maybe it's too long. Maybe I'm just a little too worn out from jamming out to the first 10 tracks. I mean, how am I supposed to ever recover from the unrelenting bass line of Schism, and then that followed by Parable into Parabola, that transition just blowing me away, and it's followed by the insatiable ticks and leeches sucking me dry, and you haven't even got into the symbols and calculations of the title track, or even mentioned The Grudge or The Patient, and so, regardless of it not being my number one Tool album, it still sits as an incredibly lasting math rock opus. The final decision basically came down to my preference in energy, groove, and the grungier mix. A rich, angry, ethereal slurry that coats this throbbing rock tale. The band's second LP, released in September of 1996. The very best Tool album is Anima. There's just something about really having something to prove that brings amazing things out of certain artists, and this being their sophomore album, and first with a new producer, David Buttrill, and new bassist, Justin Chancellor, who learned about half these songs from Paul before he left. I think they just came together in a perfect, creative, and adversive, sophisticated collision here, and it's amazing. Hypnotically propulsive, brutally poignant, and magnetic grooves, Anima encapsulates and passionately deconstructs a rage against the ego through unabashed reflections on this stupid and frankly evil human paradigm. Favorites are a tough thing to do with this album, but we'll stick with classics, 46 and 2, Third Eye, and of course the title track. Never afraid to speak his mind, and with the power of expertly crafted, innovative rhythms and riffs behind him, Maynard can endlessly process this tragic comedy by harnessing universal sentiments and weaving them into these touching melodic narratives. Succeeding within while lashing out against the inhuman music capitalist industry, he provides a fresh alternative to a forcefully stagnant mainstream. Musical medicine, sonic serotonin, Tool is transcendent, demanding, sure, a bit of an investment to fully decipher its meanings, but rewarding every single step of the way. It's been such a thrill to dive into this progressive powerhouse. I would love to know your personal favorites as well as how you rank their discography down in the comments. Go ahead, make me jealous. Tell me about a favorite Tool concert you've attended. The closest I think I'll ever get is probably this upcoming Sesenta 2.0 tour, so check out my A Perfect Circle and my Pussifer videos as well. There's guides to that. I got it all linked down there. If you want to know, I'm probably going to come out with a Primus one too, so hit that subscribe button to get that hot off the presses. It'll be linked somewhere when that's done, and I guess the last thing to do is leave a like to squeeze some delicious lemon juice into my third eye. I appreciate your patronage. Take good care, y'all. I'll see you on the next one.